Right, this is going to be another episode of Thorin and Loco versus Worlds. We've got LS here again, as usual, because, I don't know, Loco's like one of those people who's gaining self-awareness and perspective on life, so he's trying to find someone who was like him, with all the same flaws as him and all the same problems as him, and then think, oh, this guy's so different from me, and I just go, yeah, Loco, yeah, they're all weird, these guys out here, Loco, but me and you, buddy, we'll get them all, pal. So anyway, we've got an interesting guest with potential for controversial statements and/or, who knows, at this point in time, I would make a joke like, you know, one of us could say something and end everyone's career, but actually we could all do that, and at the same time no one can kill us. We've all survived, so I don't know how we keep doing it. We are esports zombies in some way, in that sense. We have survived many potential wounds, self-inflicted, nearly all of them, if we're being honest. Like, you know, best case scenario, we just give other people the knife and then they come and stab us. It's like, well, why did I do that? But it's always too late at that point in time, you know. You got to reel it back. So this episode is going to be one of our prediction episodes. If you saw the one we did with Kelsey, that was the one for G2 versus RNG, and then we had LS on for the one that was IG versus KT Rollster, and now we're going to do the Freak of Freaks versus Cloud9, and this is one where I actually think, to start off with, let's just talk about, oh, by the way, presented as always by G2 Sports. Yeah, you thought I'd forgot that, didn't you? I didn't forget shit. In fact, sponsors think I'm a genius because I've just absent-mindedly mentioned it after the beginning of the video. So if you tried to skip, you fucked your shit out of luck. You thought we were already in the bite there, mate. You thought we were in the sweet spot. Well, you're not. The commercial hadn't even begun yet. Like, I was just, it's like I really did take a moment to just banter, and then I was like, and how about this turtle wax? Really cuts through that grease, doesn't it? So GG Sports is a website that has leaderboard, it has all the odds, it has stats, even has the VODs, actually. You can go and watch the VODs. They're embedded on the pages of the games. It's basically a way you can just follow League of Legends, follow different games, follow the League of Legends World Championship. And in doing so, you can look at the odds, pick which games you think the winner will be from. You see the different odds from them there. You can use play coins. Eventually, those can be transferred into gems if you succeed. Gems themselves can be transferred into stuff you are aware of, like skins, like Riot Points, like Steam gift cards, like all that good shit. So anyway, that's GG Sports. We will be referring to it throughout the episode. Again, like this, it'll just come out of nowhere. You won't know what's going on. You'll be knocked off kilter for a moment, and then we'll go right back in all that good shit. So just sit the fuck down. Right, so anyway, yeah, where we going, Loco?
Yeah, so because we always have Dragon Ball Z analogies, I want to make a Naruto analogy. That's going to be my thing. So when you describe this as like the zombies are like kind of the rejects, I think of us more as like exiled ninjas, and we're more like Akatsuki. Like I'm Itachi. I'll pick out names for you guys later, but I think of us more as like the dark, like the more like the dark ninja group, like where we're too like, I guess, evil to be with like the nice content creator, like the nice wholesome content creators, and we're the evil content creators that go down to the nitty gritties.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Let's not spoil them now with our references to Naruto. We'll build into that as the episode goes on, so people have got something to look forward to here. So, I mean, to be fair, at least we'd be main characters. I mean, there's a lot of people on some of these shows who would just be a character in one of those filler episodes. Like, you know, right after some massive fight where all of a sudden the next episode begins and you just hear like, it's like, do. Yeah, oh, Jesus, goddamn, right, get off this. Like, you want to see the main story, but it's just a bunch of filler, isn't it? But enough about certain coaches and analysts in the professional League of Legends scene, who, again, we won't reference, not least because you won't know them in a few years. So, anyway. We're going to do the Freak of Freaks versus Cloud9 game here. And where I thought we'd set this up, actually, is we're going to dive into each of the teams like we did before. We're going to use similar format. It's a good way to pin it down. But LS, I actually feel as though, I know, right, that you have to, when you look at tournaments like League of Legends Worlds, you have to be aware of what's called recency bias, where you just think of the most recent games you saw, and if a team was amazing, they're going to be amazing now. If a team was bad, then they're shit now. And I know people do that, right? And I don't blame them, because it's a trap I can fall into as well. Like, if I don't try and make myself think of the bigger picture, I'll do the same thing. Yeah. Well, the problem for this particular series is recency bias makes it look, as far as I can tell, to Westerners, like this is a done deal. Cloud9's just cruising here. They're just going to go right on through. They're going to be in semis. Meanwhile, Afrika Freaks, what, the team that was losing those games in group. Like, I will just reiterate this for people. Afrika Freaks won their group. Cloud9 didn't win their group. Not only that, Cloud9, yes, performed really well against some harder teams, but they lost games as well, just as Afrika Freaks did. So now, listen, we can get into it, and we will with each separate team, how they got here, like what they were like, etc., what form they were like. And I'd obviously give people the agreement that, like, I would say Cloud9 has looked better in the tournament so far. But I'm amazed how many people, when they saw that bracket, were like, wow, I can't wait for Cloud9 versus Fnatic. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, are we just going past a Korean team in best of fives? Like, I don't know if you guys have followed the theme of Worlds. I know most people, obviously, if you're an NA fan, you just bail after week 2. You're like, right, Worlds was the usual length this year. But the irony is, I've always said this joke, Loco. To me, the biggest gap, if you want to like be sassy like that, the biggest gap in League of Legends is the jump of Korean teams from the group stage to the first playoff game. Because when they have that full week under their belt to go do all the prep, I already know from history they slaughter all the Western teams. The Western team who's good in the group stage, that's probably who they are. They're pretty good in the group stage. You know, they had a good practice, players are in good form, the meta's fitting them. The difference is I've seen so many Korean teams in history make a jump from groups to first playoff stage where it's like they go from being like, they are potentially beatable, they could be knocked out, they've even lost games. And then when they hit that quarterfinals, they're basically in form where it's like they could win the tournament. And I feel like that's the interesting thing about this matchup, because obviously both teams coming in with different rep, I think.
So both are the former tournaments. There was like big gaps, right? There was week 1 groups, week 2 groups, and then like a full week groups before, or full week of break before quarters. Now everything's much tighter. Groups are all played within 1 week, and then within a few days of groups ending, the quarterfinals are here. That's why our videos have been very tight in terms of release schedule also. So that gap you talked about, that 1 week gap where Koreans really get to prepare, actually shrank a lot. And the format this year prefers the NA teams a little, or not prefers the NA teams, but
it makes them not as disadvantaged is the way I'd say it, you know. Yes, clearly it did a level playing field a little bit. But that's what we're going to be able to talk about now. So I already know I can cheat on this one because Ellis has already said on this stream like what he thinks the overall score will be. Now listen, there's lots we can talk about in the game, etc. But I want to ask you on this then, Loco. Like, when you see this as a matchup, like, are you also thinking similarly to fans that like Cloud9 comes in looking better and it's like more, you're excited in as much as will Cloud9 make it? Is the storyline for you like, will the Korean team assert themselves and will Afrika be the best team in that side of the bracket? Where are you coming down on that one? How do you set the story up for yourself?
I think Afrika hit incredible amounts of high during the LCK season. And then they dipped a lot during groups, or they dipped a little bit towards the end, and they kind of got saved by KT beating Griffins, and they were able to directly go to Worlds. And then during groups, they struggled in the first few days, and then they picked it up again. And I think the two core factors are meta changing and King moving away from certain champions, and also not being able to use the 10-man subsystem.
Yes.
So a lot of things went different from Afrika, and they're finding their footing again. And right now, the question is, how much of a footing did they find? And I mean, we have outside information, so I definitely want to talk about those. Afrika has been scrimming a lot. They probably are I wouldn't say the hardest working team, but they're cramming in so much to get back to the level they were and try to figure out shit and like make shit work again. So
yes.
It's
let's start with Afrika then. Let's just keep this conversation going, because as you said there, Loco, for people who don't know, I'm actually going to do a short video on this topic of like the history of I Love Uv in StarCraft, you know, and the whole point is that you won't have to know anything about StarCraft. It'll just basically tell you like, you know, context of like when he was the best player and what he did and things like that. Because for people who don't know, that's also a factor that I think has got to play into how this Afrika team does. I know with most teams, it's hard to know like what does the coach do or how does his personality influence the game. But in the case of I Love Uv, first of all, he came from the old school days of StarCraft, and in the really old school days, they took like work ethic element too far, if anything. You know, they really were doing ridiculous stuff like 60 16-hour practice days, because they actually thought, like, it's not even that they actually sat down and calculated that it was the best system. It probably isn't. It probably burns you out. But in their minds, they wanted it to be like, there's nothing I didn't leave any stone unturned to become the best. Like, I was trying to do literally everything I could. So I could totally imagine why, after having those losses in the group stage, I Love Uve's like, right, we just practiced the most going into the playoffs. We've got to get all our scrims in and stuff. Because I saw some Western people was doing the usual thing of like, oh, is that too much practice? Like saying that they play the most, but like it's more the mentality of what they're trying to do there than the literal number of hours. I doubt the extra 3 hours a day they get much out of, but in their minds, you think about how confident you would be if you knew you literally did everything you could in practice.
Yeah, I mean, StarCraft system was a little different because it was like basically survival even within a team and a competition even within the team, because you didn't have people playing different positions to a certain extent. Like when Bjerg and Double were both on TSM, they're not competing against each other to be the best player on TSM. But if they were playing in a StarCraft environment, they would be actively competing also against each other to be the best player on TSM. And that's what's happening in StarCraft, where players were competing against each other even within their team for a spot to play like on TV. So yeah, StarCraft environment was always super fucking cutthroat.
Well, the funny thing is there, Loco, you have also touched on something different about Afrika, right? Because the reason why Afrika had a sub for every position was not only so they could scrim internally, but so that people could compete for the positions. Like if you go and look at the lineup, when they first started this lineup, Spirit was there all day long. He gets swapped out for Mowgli sometimes. It even happened in this group when they lost some games. People don't know this because the guy ended up getting suspended in summer, but they actually had an AD carry. It was that aiming guy who they were playing more than Kramer towards the end of the split. It's just that he got suspended and then he couldn't play in the playoffs. So there's very few players in this team. Basically, like Kuro, Keen, and Tussin are the ones who are going to play pretty much every time. But if it's LCK, the other two can absolutely be swapped out. Like that's been done. I think in a mixture of, you know, jungler. There's usually logical reasons that he did badly in game one. You want to tell him something for game 3. But for AD carry, I believe that was based on like literally just based on how they wanted to play the game. They would just swap in Kramer for one style and then aiming for another. So. Like, if anything, I think, again, I Love Uve's like bringing some of the StarCraft mentality into League of Legends there. Because people didn't really compete for spots as much, I think.
Ellis, did you have something to say?
I mean, one of the things that, I mean, in League, at least in the West, right? Like you're saying Bjerg and Double aren't competing against each other. But I think not directly, but they're competing in a way to not be the worst. Because the way that job security works, I think that's semi-toxic, sort of, because the West still has yet to adopt like what Hanwha Life and Afrika and other people are doing with like massive like we have Academy, but we don't really have Academy.
Maybe on lower tier teams, but let's be realistic. Bjerg and Double aren't afraid for their jobs.
No, right. No, of course they're not. Of course they're not. I think like the work ethic. Like I was actually having.
I mean, to be fair, Loco, Doublelift has been fired twice, so he should be afraid for his job.
Doublelift could get dropped from TL today, and there'd be an auction for his buyout, and that. Like,
sure, but I mean, in a way, he is competing to stay on TSM and be the number. Like basically, what those guys did when they failed was it was like right, who failed the most, and then the one who failed the most is the one who got booted. That's how people saw shit.
I should have never mentioned Double and Bjerg as an example because I feel like it's going to turn into another TSM episode.
No, it isn't. Yeah. No, I've just given people the straight fire. So anyway, SLS, what were you going to say?
No, so I mean, I was having dinner with Artris from Team Liquid, he's the manager, yesterday in Seoul, and we were talking about, he actually brought up Afrika's work schedule, and he thought that it was forced, and I'm of the belief that it's probably not forced. I think that they want to do it. And I think that that's something that's a little bit different. And sort of like what Thorin's saying, is it better? I don't think like that many hours of just like what he said. I don't know how much they get out of the final scrim or whatnot. But
in terms of it being forced and not forced, there's so many examples of not StarCraft, of League of Legends Korean players choosing to not take a break. So infamously, Samsung White, Samsung Blue during their extremely good year, they would get 2 to 3 day breaks, and 3 or 4 people would be like, we're just gonna stay home and practice. I think we really need to practice. And then the other 1 or 2 would be like, you know, we'll practice also. And especially when the big figures on the team, like say like Mata, like Hart, Dandy, Acorn, like they're like, we're gonna practice. It is harder for the younger people and like the lesser people to say, oh, I'm gonna go out because of the kind of mood it sets.
Yes.
In a way, it is culturally forced, but there are key players on those teams that are actively being like, yes, I am not taking a break and I am going to practice. And
I'll give you an analogy. It's the difference between if all three of us, right, have to go to the military and it isn't our choice, the military will definitely get us in shape. They will make us do certain amounts of physical labor, get up and all the rest of it. Like in this particular kind of a setting, this is like if we actually like wanted to do that out of choice and then we were just doing it for fun and we were like, oh, it's brilliant. And so the analogy I would give is this setup is more like if we were all gym buddies and we all really want to get in shape. Well, you know, the reason why you get a gym buddy is because if you go by yourself, it's way more likely when you're really tired on that last set that you're just going to go, fuck it, I'll just give myself the day off. But if you're there with your mate and he's next to you and he's doing just as many as you, you're not going to quit as early. You're going to make yourself go a bit longer because you're like, I don't want to be the pussy who just quit because I couldn't do it. And also, you know, you're looking at him, you're seeing him succeed, and you're like, I don't want to get left behind. So like, I'm with you on that one, Loco. It's like it's half and half, clearly, because there are so many stories in StarCraft and League of Legends where, you know, the actual schedule was very strong. It was like 12 hours a day. But then the difference is when everyone else goes, right, in theory, everyone can leave now. That 12-hour point is where, whatever, Flash, Heart, some of these players, Faker, they just go, right, I'm going to do 3 hours extra anyway because that's just who I am. You know, I want to do this.
It's majority versus minority. When the minority wants to practice, then like the majority can just overrule it and minority is like whatever. But when the majority wants to practice, the minority of not wanting to practice can't sit out because either 5 people practice or nobody practices. Okay. Or not nobody, but there is a difference between all 5 playing scrims together or a few people staying behind in solo queue. There is a level of difference.
So obviously one of the reasons we've been discussing this angle, aside from the fact I love who've mentioned it in an interview, is because Afrika didn't start the tournament great. They lost the first 2 games. They were actually looking like, amazingly, it was going to be Flash Wolves and G2 got out of the group, and that was very possible right up until the end. So that's one of the reasons, presumably, why now they're making such a big public show, the fact that we're going to practice loads, like as much more than anyone else, like no one can do what we can do. It's a cool angle to take, but this is the question. Loco, what do you think of Afrika in the group stage? Like, were you ever concerned they were going to fail to make playoffs?
So there's key players I really want to talk about on Afrika, and one of them is Keen. I still believe Keen is the best top laner at this tournament over Smep, and I think I'm backed up by Korean coaches who decided to take Keen over Smep because they thought Keen was more well-balanced. One of Keen's thing is he'll play carries, he'll play tanks.
Wait a minute, you mean for the Asian Games? You
didn't for the Asian Games. For what? Yeah, for Asian Games. This guy never dies to jungle ganks. That was his thing. He would play aggressive, he would build leads, and unlike Smep, Marin, and Huni in the past, where they would be vulnerable to ganks, this guy would never die to ganks. And GG Esports stat, someone supports that, like tenacity, he's 19 in tenacity out of 20. This guy is someone that doesn't like fall behind, doesn't fuck up, and still is able to play aggressive. And I didn't see that from him at all in the first few days of group. He played Sion versus G2, and it was just a meh performance. He didn't do much, and I think a lot of it came from the picks really changing from like there was core picks that he was really good at that they're not playing anymore, and he got forced onto tank a few times, and he didn't get to play as much carries. And they were playing more carries toward the end, and I think that's what fixed that. So the core champs, I think, were Darius, 60% win rate, 40% carry rate. That means in 40% of the games he was playing Darius, he carried. Another pick that's not listed here was Quinn. His Quinn was amazing in summer. Holy shit. Like, I've never seen a Quinn play that well. I know most of NA and like European viewer base have seen Sneaky's Quinn. This guy's Quinn was on another level in terms of split pushing, amount of pressure he was buying, the kind of flanks that he was doing. If you look at his stats overall from 45 games, 25 games to 10 games, he went from 40% carry rate in 40 games to only 10% carry rate in his last 10 games. So his performance definitely diminished towards Worlds and at Worlds. Ellis, I'm sure you know more about Keen than me. Like, what was your overall view of like how he did at groups?
I think like Keen, I think is actually one of the really big deciding factors coming into the quarterfinals match. And like what you're mentioning about other champions that he's picked historically, I think that his pool goes deeper than most of the other top laners in the tournament. And I also think that he's actually, you can argue that he's the scariest potential top laner at the tournament. So I think that like the fact that they have access to his champion picks that I don't think Licorice either most likely is going to have experience playing against in recent scrims, because I don't know how much certain champs are actually being picked out, because everything I ever hear is Urgot, Aatrox over and over and over, or like variations of like Scion top lane or whatnot. So if Keen gets a little bit tricky and unorthodox, which is also what I'm expecting Afrika to do inside of a best of 5, I think that they'll come out with like a lot of cheeses. Then I think that his performance is going to be stellar, but I also think that he can have edges that are going to be gained for him through draft. Maybe Afrika doesn't go to that, but I think that they will.
Okay. Another key player that I want to talk about is Thorin. What do you think about Thorin?
Oh man, I think that we talked about him like a week ago, right? Or 2 weeks ago.
We talked about him for being ugly. What about let's talk about him for being good?
Exactly.
No, he's really, really good. He is so good. I think that he can be. He's going to be another deciding factor. Like Afrika has so many players that are actually really key in this matchup against Cloud9, and I think it hurts Cloud9 a lot because it attacks some of where they're getting some of their strengths. So I think that Keen and Tushin are two actually the best players to talk about. This is another. I don't know. Do we know their side selection yet?
Afrika has higher seeds, so they're going to be able to pick whatever side they want on game 1, 3, and 5.
Okay. I think it depends what Afrika is going to end up picking. I think one of the interesting things would be, I guess, blue side for Afrika, and if Tushin and bottom lane can get priority picks for support. And obviously, isn't like Alistar one of Cloud9's
best
high contested? Yeah, best champions. I'm curious to see what Tushin will pull out for support picks.
Oh, it's so obvious what he'll pick into Alistar. Gragas.
No. I mean, or he just takes Alistar.
Oh, okay.
They could do it that side. Yeah. But I think that if like depending on what the bot lane matchups are and how stable they can be and whatnot, then I think that Tushin can just apply a lot of pressure via vision and then obviously roams. So,
okay, I think
is problematic for Cloud9. Yeah.
One of the core things about Cloud9 is Zeyzal is one of their key players, and he's exceptional on 2 champions, Alistar and Thresh. Where Thresh is a little bit more conditional, and you can play Kench and other champions versus it, or you can also play Alistar versus Thresh, and that's a fine matchup. Alistar has like these heavy counterpick matchups that can be really kind of shitty for Alistar, mainly Tahm Kench and Gragas. Tahm Kench, everyone and their mother plays, and Gragas, it's not a champion that everyone plays, but Thorin is an excellent Gragas. He's one of the best Gragases at the tournament, so I think it's going to be really tricky for Cloud9's pick and ban, where do we draft Alistar early? And to draft Alistar early, we need to ban both Kench and Gragas. And if we're investing 2 bans into it and they just ban out Alistar, then our draft is kind of fucked. So yeah, I think it's not going to be an easy draft for C9, where they were in really great spots versus other teams by being able to draft better and draft the champions that people didn't know really what to do with. Afrika will not give them the same kind of leniency in terms of draft. Like Thorin Gragas, Thorin Rakan, Thorin Kench. Thorin is going to be super fucking problematic for Cloud9, in my opinion.
There's also the flaw as well. This is something you always have to consider with the Western teams. Is like, if you're going against Cloud9 in the NALCS, you might obviously spend bans to take Licorice off some super strong champion that he wants to play, Jensen off something that he's super good on. You don't have to fear that as much if you have a team like Afrika, where you've got all these really good players, this really balanced team. If anything, you could, if I'm them, in fact, I would be targeting the rookie players. Like if they play Blabber, I'm targeting his champion pool. Yeah. If they play the support, I'm going to make sure that you can have, okay, even if you get your champion, it's into the matchup I want, like do it that way. Like if I'm a coach like I Love Over and you know the background of these players, it's just logical as a way to attack.
Yeah, I mean,
is there any stats for Thorin then? What is it's usually like wards or something for support, right?
it doesn't have the ward stats. I don't think there's any stats that are terribly relevant. I would say his carry rate on Rakan 72%. So GG Esports thinks when he plays Rakan 100 times out of the 100 games, 72 of the games he'll do extremely well on Rakan, which is true. Like his Rakan is disgusting. Man, like Rakan is one of those champions when support players are good, like it really fucking shows. The range of engage is like 2,000 range, instantly covered. E flashed RW, like it's such a disgusting engage, and Tucson has like he has this like predatory mindset of whenever I see an opening, I'm gonna go for it, like no hesitations. That's why he's so good on Rakan, so great on Alistar, so great on Gragas, like these kind of opening champions where you look for an opening and you fucking bite into it, like he's so fucking great at.
It looked in the group stage as though on a past episode we brought up that angle of the fact that people were saying that, oh, maybe what's changed about League this year is, you know, like that like control style based around vision, which you can't have as much vision now anyway with the game, which was the Korean style, and then the idea is you just try to make less mistakes, and you know that like whatever other region's going to make a few more, and then you capitalize on the mistakes and you win the game off it, macro style basically. People were saying that doesn't exist as much. I feel as though they were saying that basically about Afrika Freaks, because they watched Afrika play against G2, Flash Wolves, Fongfu, teams that on paper there's no way these teams should be able to compete if that style still worked as well. So what would you say is the playing style of Afrika Freaks, Celeste? How would you characterize them as a team?
I think Afrika is the most unpredictable, in the LCK, Afrika's the most unpredictable team in terms of what you can expect, or what they, I guess, can come at you with, especially as the season goes on and moves on. When I think of Afrika as, it's weird because Kuro has leveled up so much as a player in the last year. I think of them similarly sort of to how I think of Griffin. Because when I think of Korean teams, there's three archetypes that are really defining, right? There's KT, there's SKT, and then there's like Genji.
What would the difference be just generally, if you give us quickly a rundown?
Between what?
Like, what would the archetype differences be? Yeah.
Yeah. So KT is really solid, stable mechanically, and then they generally attack early and mid game really strong. SKT is pretty fucking poor at like lane kingdom type stuff. They don't have that, so they scale mid game is their proficiency. Late game is fine. Genji is predominantly, in my experience, watching them late game, and I think that they're very stale, they're very bland, and they're boring. So it's like, as the game progresses, each team just represents sort of those phases. Afrika, you can sort of get anything. It's sort of like a fucking, you know, you pick your hand in the jar and you pull something out. It's like doing group draw or some shit.
Pick a mix candy's the better analogy.
Yeah, pick a mix candy.
Because there's actually good shit in there. In the group draw.
They can play so many styles. That's what's really scary. So in the best of 5, I think this is where they can be scariest. This is actually, so if it was a best of 3, or if it was a round robin best of 1 where they played Cloud9 5 individual times, I would give them less of an edge than in a straight up best of 5 with game.
Yeah.
To
be fair, if I Love Uv does a good job and wrecks this series with his like strategical knowledge, then the style they will have actually played will be fucking Gangnam style, because a baller old man will have run game on a bunch of young studs or whatever. I don't know. The analogy was working sort of there, if you know anything about the way Gangnam club scene works. See you down there, Octagon, on the weekend.
Do you go to clubs in Gangnam when you live in Korea?
I'm pretty sure I've been more times than you, Loco. I was going ham, boy. I was going. I basically lived inside Octagon and then just had a house that I sometimes had to go to and sleep in sometimes. Like, it was outrageous, mate. Because I figured out a long time. I won't make this whole digression, but like a lot of people, I figured out very early on that whole thing of like, if you actually have money and you just get a table, they assume you're literally like a fucking massive businessman or something. So
yeah, like, especially because you're also older and white. Yeah. Like, they probably think you like have a lot of
balling, mate. Yeah, I was loving shit. So all I'm going to say is, yeah, brilliant. I was scouting a lot of talent out there. It was sort of like scouting grounds. I was trying to see which ones had a future, which ones could make. I know, anyway, yeah, get back.
Let's not talk about your quarter life crisis. Anyway,
don't worry about it, mate. I live to 100, that'd be brilliant. So don't worry about that. The irony is, of course, look, I was way over quarter life, mate. So don't worry about that.
I know. Let's not talk about you trying to relive your 20s. Anyways, Afrika, why they're so varied is because they have carries in every lane. They can play jungle carry, top lane carry, even mid lane carry, bot lane carry, like Kramer, Spirit, Keen, Kuro. They could all take over the game. Why they're able to play such a very style play style, I guess, for Afrika.
Okay. Right, okay, then what about this then? We'll talk about Cloud9 and then we'll do like the direct head-to-head. So Cloud9 is the team that, it's funny because when everyone talks about like storylines coming into Worlds, everyone was loving Cloud9 from like beating TSM and then obviously going all the way through the gauntlet. And it's like no one ever mentions they did just get utterly crushed by Team Liquid 3-0 in a way where like they looked like they had no chance whatsoever. It was like someone fighting their older brother and their older brother's just holding them slightly out of distance, just punching them in the stomach. And they're like, come on, hit back. It's like, I can't reach you. I can't do anything here, can I, bro? Like, so they've had certainly some pretty good runs and they've obviously fixed the whole thing where they themselves had a rotation that they can't use. They can only use the junglers here, whereas at home they were obviously using Golden Glue in the mid. So they had their own rotation elements of it. They've also got a legendary figure from Korean esports as their coach. They've got Reaped, who is the infamous in-game leader of players. So Cloud9, LS, are you actually impressed by Cloud9?
Unlike all the other NA teams in the tournament, I thought that Cloud9 actually improved. Like, they improved from when I last saw them in LCS, or the last games that I saw before they left America. And then they also seemingly looked better the more that the tournament went on. Although I will say they had, I would say like 2.5 free draft wins. And I think that actually really helped with them making it out of groups.
Genji like draft versus Cloud9 was ass.
Oh, gee. And the Vitality draft was fucking atrocious. That was a donation or something. I don't even know.
What were the biggest flaws? Like, what did these teams do that sort of gave an edge to Cloud9? What would you describe quickly?
Zillion.
It was like, no, well, it's not even just that. Hold on, let me pull up the. Wait, hold on. Cloud9. Wait, let me just pull up the draft. I got some juicy shit. Cloud9. I think it's this. Yeah, it is this. All right, so.
Which one are you looking at?
Yeah, okay. All right, so one of them is the Zillion, where the fucking Team Vitality is sitting there. I don't know. Yamato Cannon's like walking on the stage. You know, I think Trundle's an excellent pick here, and so they picked Trundle because God knows fucking why. And then Zillion and what? Zillion. Oh fuck! Let me just do the final draft. Zillion and Singed ends up getting locked in. And then they have an Echo. Now, Jizuki, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong.
That's fine.
It was the best player on Vitality, by far. He was the most impressive player. He's one of the most impressive Western players I've seen in recent times. They take Trundle, and then they have a fucking Echo. And it's just completely out of play. This whole team composition falls apart on top of itself after one item. Basically, Draven and Echo have to get an item before the opponent. They have to accelerate bottom lane, get the turret, and then Cloud9 has to handshake team fights against this Vitality team. Because anything past one item, the gold efficiency for Cloud9's champions, and also just the inherent base scaling due to the Zillion component, the fucking Singed and everything, it's just so much stronger than Vitality's. So Vitality's actually can't do anything.
So Vitality's win condition in this is like what? Team fight, right? They have Sion, Trundle, Echo, Thresh, and Draven. They can't really...
They have to team fight early.
Yeah, they have to team fight, and to team fight with that comp versus a Zillion, Xayah, and a Singed is fucking, like, it's so hard. So let's say they don't team fight, and they want to try to force a split push. So Sion isn't going to get turrets by himself. The only person that can split push on their team is Echo. Echo versus a Singed split pushing with a Nocturne on the team and a Shen on the team. So Echo has to beat Singed with a Nocturne ult and a Shen ult.
Right.
It's so fucking hard. So yeah, they drafted themselves into a corner. So
they drafted themselves into a corner, and then there was what was it? Cloud9
versus Genji. Oh my god, that game was so bad in terms of draft. It's the Crown where Crown went 0-6.
4 days ago, and then all right, hold on. Let me see which one.
All right, I'll talk about it a little and until you catch up.
Yeah.
So it was, they drafted Syndra into Hecarim, Nocturne, and Shen. And Cloud9 counterpicked with a LeBlanc. I think one thing that was really important was what blind picks that people were doing for blue side, but Syndra into Hecarim, Nocturne, and Shen itself is bad, and then you add LeBlanc on top of it, the moment you start dying, you're so fucked. And he was building Zhonya's, he had his stopwatch, he used his stopwatch in a really bad way, and then he sold his stopwatch and he tried to go into a Banshee. While Banshee isn't a bad item to get, once you start Zhonya's, like you're kind of committed onto that path and you should really finish that fucking defensive item. Like Crown just did so many things wrong that game and gifted Cloud9 to win.
Okay.
I found the 2 games I was, so it was actually Cloud9 versus RNG. It was both games. RNG picks this fucking weird ass wonky Scion mid. They have an Urgot in the team composition, a Lee Sin that, I mean, so it's red side Lee Sin who can't gank blue side Shen. He can't reliably gank Jensen in mid lane unless Scion has 6, but that's already going to be too much of a problem because Syndra's always going to have priority. Going up to level 9 unless Lee Sin has help. Then if Lee Sin gets matched or counter ganked, then Talia's just going to fuck him up. Lee Sin falls behind now like 3 camps because it's Talia. And then bottom lane, you just have Siva perma pushing in. So Lee Sin has 3 lanes where he can do fuck all. He has 2 lanes that are going to accomplish fuck all nothing. And then he has a Kai'Sa that can't scale because she has fucking crutches in 4 other positions on her team. Mm-hmm. So RNG can't spell League of Legends in this game, and so Cloud9 gets another fucking free win. Everything past 1 item, they just win the fucking game. So they didn't actually have to do too much. But credit to them. Unlike Team Liquid, they didn't find a way to fuck it up. Oh. So they managed to be stable and win. So
they got out of groups through other people's mistakes. But being able to take advantage of those mistakes is skill in itself. Like, it's not to downplay Cloud9, and them getting out of group was definitely an accomplishment with a group with Gen.G and RNG, but other teams opened up a path for Cloud9 to do well, and they took full advantage of it.
Yes.
Okay. Right, who would be, pick out a player and then let's look at the stats. So who would be a key player that you want to talk about LS on Cloud9?
Let's talk about Licorice. I think there's tons of hype around him. I think he's one of the best players.
I wonder why he has hype. Was he one of your prodigies that you called out?
Yes, he's one of LS's.
I
did actually mention him in 2017.
What is your list of prodigies? So, like,
this isn't even. Why are you mocking? It's not even fake.
I'm not mocking. I just want to have it on record. So
okay.
Wait,
what's your list of prodigies? I think. All right, hold on. All right, Apto. Right? I talked about Apto before he was famous. I did. Thorin fucking said, "Who the fuck's Apto?" That was the first time anyone heard of him.
Okay.
In the West. Okay.
Apto.
So there was Apto, Bwipo Alfari. What the fuck? Apto, Crown, Teddy, Keen, but the Keen thing's not Afrika Keen. I have it in the DMs with Sven and Forgiven, but it's not public, so fuck whatever. Licorice I talked about in 2017. Who else is there? There's more people. I said Moon. People will flame me for saying Moon, but I think that Moon was mismanaged, and I think that it's beyond salvage at this point.
Okay, so I just want to make sure there aren't players you missed that didn't make it. These are all the players that you ever mentioned as LS approved prodigy.
No, Moon is someone that people could be like, oh well, he bombed. Okay. But on record, you won't find tweets or videos of me making the same state or exalted statements about people that I have about these players.
You should just name it something. I give this player LS prodigy stamp of approval. So
God damn it.
No, you should. I'm not even joking.
I like that.
You should. So later on, you can say yes. I approved of this player because
people with a brain can look at the list and know that I'm not shooting bullets.
If you have an actual list, right, then you become so much more credible. Have an actual list. LS approved prodigy. I give this player LS approved prodigy.
I mean, I can make a list, but I think that people will look at it jokingly, but people with a brain look at it why am I not misfiring? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Why am I not saying people that just blank? It doesn't. Oh, Khan's in that too. Mm-hmm. I talked about Khan way before everyone else. Yeah.
So for me, right, to go into Licorice and get back into the topic, most impressive thing about Licorice is his flexibility. Usually NA players, and especially NA tops, fall into 2 categories. I can only play carries and I can only play tops. And that's even for Korean
Tanks.
players. Or tanks, yeah, my bad. Tanks are tops. Tanks are carries. Tanks are carries. And if you go through Licorice's game, it's Shen, or not Shen, Poppy tank, Singed, kind of a carry, Shen tank, Hecarim carry, Urgot tank, Ornn tank, Urgot tank, Shen tank, Jarvan carry, Singed carry, Akali carry. Like he flip-flops back and forth, and his performance on those champions doesn't drop. He maintains a consistent good performance on these champions like throughout. Wide champion pool, able to play both styles, like really fucking impressive for an NA rookie. And I also played him in Academy. Like we smashed them in Academy, but I will say whenever we prep versus United, we always prep for their mid lane, who was like GBM or Fox and Licorice. Like they were the solo laners for United were who I always prepped against, and Licorice was definitely a player where I felt like we need to prep versus this guy or we're gonna get wrecked.
Same. Yep.
Okay. Can we have some stats on him then?
I mean, that was the stats, like him playing multiple champions.
Okay.
To go into more of other stats, like what could we really talk about? Like, he's able, the fact that he doesn't really have a signature champion and the fact that he's great across all these champions is his stat. And like his troll rate is 0%. His feed rate
What
is
about this
0%.
then?
He's very consistent.
We live in a world where a lot of people think that like AD carry is essential to the game right now. Like if you have a weak AD carry, it's going to be hard to be a team that wins. Like obviously Sneaky is a player who's been on Cloud9 a long time, but if you've got Jensen in the mid lane and Licorice is playing carries, how do they divide up resources in Cloud9?
Sneaky either gets Pizza Sivir and he plays utility, or he gets Kaisa and Zaya and they play towards him a little bit more. Or Cloud9 is one of the few teams that run triple carries or even quad carries by having like a Nocturne jungle that's like building full damage items, where they have like 4 damage dealers or carries, you want to call it. Like they are a team where they're willing to play like triple carry or even quad carries. Like they divide resources in a very like tight manner, where if they fall behind in those comps where Licorice is on a carry and Sneaky is also on a carry AD and not a utility AD, the comp can go really wrong. But they are willing to play those kind of comps.
Okay. Right, let's pick one other Cloud9 player then before we like contrast the two. So who is the other essential player? I'm going to guess we should probably pick one of the rookies, right? One of the players that people hadn't seen until this year, because potentially could be a big storyline for this match.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to do Zeyzal because I don't think we're going to see Blabber a lot, and I also don't want to see Blabber a lot. No offense to Blabber, but I think Cloud9 right now is much stronger with Svenskeren. So with Blabber, I mean, the thing I want to talk about is his most picked champions, Alistar and Braum and Thresh. I really want to focus on Alistar and Thresh. His Alistar and Thresh is like the key deciding factor for Cloud9 a lot of times, especially his Alistar. There are so many key points in the game where I feel like Cloud9 has to start a fight now or they're going to lose the game or they're going to fall behind too much. And Zeyzal's always so willing and so on point about flash WQ combos. Or he either does flash W and then Q, or WQ flash. Like he knows which combo he has to pull off and he does it perfectly. Like I think Zeyzal Alistar is one of Cloud9's biggest strengths, and the fact that it's going to get neutralized versus Afrika is one of their biggest worries.
Okay. Right, matching the two teams up now, who do you think has the stylistic edge right now?
LS, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, Afrika. I think that it's rough for Cloud9 to try to prepare against a team that I like. So Cloud9 and Afrika apparently used to be scrim partners. And so this is actually one of the benefits, I guess, that they can have, is that they used to be scrim partners, but there's still a lot of time between when they play and how many games Afrika's actually playing and scrimming and whatnot. So I think because Afrika's willing to bend meta, and I don't think that Cloud9 can, not even that they would want to, I think that they can't. I think that's stylistically one of the biggest edges for Afrika. And that two of Afrika's best players counteract two of Cloud9's best.
Yeah. So, like where Cloud9 has their strengths, like it gets neutralized so much by Afrika, and I just have way too much respect for Afrika, Korean region, and I Love U in terms of them picking up and fixing their shit, and especially for Keen, who I think is like core to them, is just, yeah, I mean, I don't see a situation where Cloud9 wins this. Am I being too extreme? Do you guys see a situation? Do you guys see a world where Cloud9 wins?
No.
What are their win conditions?
Afrika drafts themselves into a corner. That's the fucking win con. No, I don't. I don't think that you can actually devise a realistic win condition without being disingenuous to the actual skill level and the matchup itself against Afrika.
Like, my problem with this one is it reminds me of when in some of the past years that really good TSM lineup of 2016, 2017 went to Worlds. It's like, because they were so good in even just pure laning in NA, it's like that's one thing that you had to expect to drop off when they went against the top Asian teams. So most of the games I've seen where this Cloud9 team looked scary were the ones where Licorice just went ham, basically, and he was doing super well. Well, Keen basically has literally gone against all the best top laners in Korea and done fucking well. Like, this is a guy who does well against Smith, does absolutely fine against pretty much every single good top you can think of. So I can't see what Licorice is going to do that's going to wreck him, especially because it's not like he has like tons of secret picks. We've already talked before, if anything, it's Keen that's got a bunch of weird things he can pull out, like he was using earlier in the year, and off-meta picks that he does in his team. So it does feel like that, if that was going to be one of your hopes, that like Licorice goes super ham, it's hard to see he does that 3 out of 5 games against the Edge.
Okay. So another thing is Jensen overpowering mid laners, which was like a really common theme in groups, especially versus RNG, or not RNG, versus Genji, where Jensen was destroying Crown. Kuro does not lose to anyone but Faker, and Jensen is good, but he ain't Faker. So I don't think Jensen's also going to be able to also wrestle down the enemy mid laner. Like, Kuro is going to be super fucking solid. So Cloud9, I would say their 3 key players are Jensen, Licorice, and Zeyzal. All 3 of them get neutralized really hard by Afrika's key players, which are Kuro, Keen, and Tucson. Yeah. So it's stylistically, I think a lot of people were saying Afrika is the best matchup for Cloud9. I actually disagree. Like, I think Afrika, in a lot of ways, is a really terrible matchup for Cloud9. Where Cloud9's good, Afrika is better, or stylistically really good versus Cloud9.
What about this factor then? So as I referenced, the Afrika team themselves actually run a rotation at the jungle position. They play either Spirit, who everyone will know from many years ago, or they play Mowgli, who this year actually was, as I said, being used quite often in LCK instead of Spirit. So first of all, do you think that they swap the 2 junglers in? And
if Spirit plays like a monk, the impact it should have is they should win all the games with Spirit, but if Spirit ever starts over-forcing things or getting tilted, Spirit's an extremely emotional player, get him out immediately and put Mowgli in. I actually do think it's not a win condition for Cloud9. Maybe it is a win condition, but the win condition is Spirit forces too many dumb things and Afrika loses due to the disadvantage they create by Spirit forcing dumb things over and over again. But they also have a countermeasure for that, which is just pull him the fuck out of game and put in Mowgli.
You know, there's actually a term that I Love Oof has when that happens, which is that if Spirit starts getting really emotional, he says like, fucking hell, this smells like Teen Spirit, and then he just gets him out of there, basically. So anyway, keep going. It wasn't real analysis, fuck. Keep going.
I think that's the thing. Like, that's C9's win condition, Spirit being too emotional, and they get him out, but Afrika get him out. Do you see LS, like, be creative. How does Cloud9 win? Reaper died. He got hit by a meteor, and Jack is like, LS, you're the Korean hope. Or you're the NA hope.
I actually think that
coach for our team.
They need big draft edges. I legitimately think the only scenario in which they win is they need big draft edges, and then Afrika needs to fall apart on top of themselves trying to do stuff, and then just blundering and bobbing. Huh?
Yeah, who can fall apart on the team?
No. I just mean as a team, fall apart. You know, like when you have those trolley-poly games, like where everyone's just doing random fuck all shit, and you know, just like a KT versus EDG, right? That's an example of falling apart. I actually, like, when I look at the other people that Cloud9 could have drawn, who would you rather have had them face?
So bear in mind they were number 2.
Fnatic, so, RNG, and KT, right? Fnatic, RNG, KT. Fnatic, RNG, KT.
Yes, that's right.
So out of that, like, I think that Afrika
maybe Fnatic.
No.
It's hard to say. Africa stylistically
well, it's not okay. So it's not going to be KT. It's not going to be RNG.
Yeah. So the only argument there is Fnatic.
Is Fnatic or Africa? My thing is that I think that Africa has a higher volatility. I think that they have more potential to be volatile, and I think that can work against themselves. Whereas I think that Fnatic would just be stable, and Whippo and Soaz, I'm sorry, causes problems for Licorice, sort of like what Keen does. So it's the same there.
Who's going to cause more problems, Keen or Soaz and Whippo?
Keen.
Yeah, so there is a little. There's a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference there. But I think that Reckless and Caps have more potential to cause problems for Cloud9.
Okay, I agree with
Kuro.
But Reckless isn't a take the game over kind of player. And the big thing about Fnatic bot lane is I can see Zeyzal being freed up much more versus Fnatic bot lane than he would be versus Africa bot lane. Africa bot lane is going to have Zeyzal by a fucking chokehold throughout the entire fucking game. Especially Tucson and his champion pool. It's going to make it fucking hell for Zeyzal the entire game, where Hylissang and Reckless frees up Zeyzal to be a little bit more active. So there is a little bit more opening from bottom and top lane if Cloud9 was versus Fnatic. But I will say it's a close call. Like if I was a Cloud9 fan and a Cloud9 coach, I would slightly prefer Fnatic over Africa, but it isn't that big of a difference where it's like, oh, I'm versus Fnatic, thank fucking God. It's not like that. I do think they have a slightly better chance versus Fnatic.
Plus, for me, part of the problem in this series is like, I'm kind of with LS. Like, I'd already thought like this team would just generally outclass Cloud9, but even worse, they've always got some crazy picks or some comp that you've never seen 100% in the bag. Like they will have that up their sleeve, and so it's even up to them if they use that. Like that's the sort of thing that I would do if I'm like, it goes 1-1 in the first two games, or game 3's where I'm coming with the crazy fucking comp where it's going to throw the series completely off, you know. Like Cloud9 doesn't really have that extra gear in that aspect, I don't think. Due to limited champion pool, you know, I mean, there's not much you can do. And also, I will say this, people are going to think this is like not a factor in professional League of Legends, but definitely is for Westerners. If you get to the World's quarterfinals and you're in like the games that are really important, so like game 3, game 5, these are the ones that will change the whole fate of your run. You do not want to be playing something that you don't play very often in official games. You want to be on something like is comfort, you know, something that you know what you're doing. Like, you know, if you get behind, the game's not over. You know that you have multiple options. It's not just like, you know, all in just one particular sense. So like, I think that I would be much more likely for Africa to do some weird picks in that sense rather than the Western team, because for Korean teams, they're supposed to be in the quarterfinals. So that's not anything unusual, you know. There's no reason to start going and getting worried.
Cloud9 aren't chokers. Like in key moments, I do think if they think a pick is really important and they should play it, I think they'll play it. I think Reaper's brave enough, and I think the players trust him enough to pull out whatever picks he thinks might be. I think in general, your analysis is correct. Western teams do tend to overthink themselves versus Korean teams and not pull out the picks that they need to, even if it's less practice and less comfortable. But I don't think that will be a takeaway versus Cloud9. Right,
well, let's do the predictions then. And before we do the predictions, over on GG Sports, site I've referenced earlier, they have $3,000 worth, US dollars worth of gems that you can compete for on the site. And we have our own leaderboard. We're on the leaderboard. I'm on there. Loco's on there. You'll see us picking games, picking who's going to win. First of all, if you add us, screen names on the screen right now, assuming the editor did his job. I'm not the guy. I'm assuming they're there right now. Add us, and you already get bonus gems, because that's part of how the site works. When you add different aspects, that you can get bonuses, like when you verify all your account, etc. You get a whole bunch. So then you can compete against us and whoever else is on that leaderboard. So you can beat a bunch of plebs like you, or you can beat Loco, not a pleb like you, just sick former Korean coach. I was also paid to say that part of the thought. Right, wow. No, so anyway, let's do our predictions then. Let's pick who we're going to pick officially then. So, okay, Loco, come on.
For me, pretty boring, but I think 3-1 Africa. I'm going to give Cloud9 one game. I do think Africa is a volatile enough team where they will fuck up, but they're going to be very good about fixing their mistakes. I think 3-1 Africa.
Okay. LS, where you going on this? I think you went 3-1 on stream, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what are the reasons for that?
Same thing what Loco just said. I think that if it weren't for Afrika's volatility, then I wouldn't give Cloud9 a game. But I can see Afrika botching either a draft or just something happening inside of a game. Like, I don't think Cloud9 is horrendous compared to the other NA teams that played in the tournament. So
I'm going to just say Afrika 3-0. Like, not to disrespect Cloud9, but, like, first of all, this isn't groups anymore. Like, one of the factors about that group that I think is a real thing is psychologically, Cloud9 had no reason to be afraid at all in that group. They were already, like, playing with house money. Everyone thought they were out. So everyone was like, they don't have no chance. So they had the underdog factor going for them massively. Like, that doesn't exist as much in an actual series just against one team. Now you've actually got to be better than them to beat them. It's not about just, like, surprising them or them underestimating you. Then you've got to add in, they literally have a rookie player who's going to have to start in the game. There's no way to sub out both rookies. Well, I love in esports games. I have gotten so many predictions right over the years, picking against rookies. Now, obviously, it's different if it's a Korean rookie because some of them are just the best players in the world. But if you're like a rookie where, like, I mean, in the case of someone like Zazla, you haven't even been playing all year long. Like, this is a massive opportunity for you. You probably haven't even played many best of fives in your career on LAN. Like I'd love to say you're going to do well, but since I think the other guy in your opposing position is better anyway, like, that's a concern. Like, you could just fall apart and blow a game yourself entirely. And then I know what you mean about, like, they could fuck up the draft, and definitely they have like the ceiling's high, but the floor is very low as well for Afrika. But, like, I also can see a world in which if they just, like, win the first game, win the second game, it's like they just mentally win the war and it's just over at that point in time. So I'm just going to say Afrika is clean, 3-0. Keen's clean, and he goes through Slay Queen. Yes. There we go. I did something with that there. I was sort of like trying to work in stuff that the kids do nowadays. Like, you know,
it was Dragon Ball GT.
I think the kids do nowadays. It's like, hey guys, let's get some bread. Afrika is lit, fam.
That was worse. Okay, I didn't know if anyone could do worse than what I did. Right, LS.
Afrika's as cool as Fortnite.
Well, there we go. He's come with a diss. Okay, so.
But Cloud9, I'm pretty sure Cloud9 is better Fortnite players than Afrika, though.
To be fair, though, Cloud9 better pick Shen, because that's the closest they'll come to playing with a ninja in Fortnite. Wow, that's actually sick. I'm out. I'm just going to leave on that note. I'm off. So I'm actually moving off camera now. I'm off. So that was pretty good.